Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Will Curran from Endless Entertainment, and
I'm Laura Lopez, the Senior Community Manager over at Social Tables.
and welcome to hashtag Event Icons, where you get the chance to ask the icons of the event industry your questions and your chance to pick their brains and get all the little information out of them. Really excited to be here. This is the second week in a row that we are doing a co-hosted show with Laura and Sean Holiday from Crowd Mics, and super duper excited with this new format. Basically, if you haven't tuned in to hashtag Event Icons before, I know we got some new people out there, or maybe watching afterwards. Hashtag Event Icons is your chance to ask the questions of the icons of the events industry. Man, I'm just at a loss of words here. I'm really excited to be tuning in and streaming live from the HubSpot office in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. And we have an absolutely awesome show today. I can talk all day long, but I wanted to give you a different voice. I would say a more beautiful voice to hashtag Event Icons. So I'll let Laura take over and explain a little bit about what hashtag Event Icons is all about and why it's all about you guys asking questions.
Awesome. So the format for today, actually the topic for today is all about live engagement marketing and event apps, event applications, a big topic of the day. So the way that this will work is that Will and I will alternate. We will tag each other out and ask questions. We'll alternate questions and ask our event icons, the folks from DoubleDutch, a different question. But this is your show. So if you are dialing in, be sure to ask a question over on the right-hand side on the live chat. If you hit /Q, ask your question, and then we'll see it in the live chat, and then we'll ask them in order. So feel free to ask as many questions as possible. Be sure to give out props for somebody who gives an exceptionally great answer or even an exceptionally bad answer. Props are what you make of them. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And our guests will also be sharing a variety of resources, so be sure to stay tuned for those. And with that, should we get started?
Well, let them in first, before we get started, getting people into the show. This is all about live. If you're watching the recording afterwards, I feel sorry for you. You got to tune into this show live. We do this every week on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. And so the idea behind it being live is getting those questions so you can ask them, talk directly to them, rather than just listening to me and Laura blab on and talk. So for those who are in the chat right now, if you can just head over on the left-hand side, there's a tweet button and a Facebook button, a big share button. If you want to click the Jesus out of that thing and share this all over your social media. We would love to have as many of your friends, family, goats, kittens,
coworkers.
That's probably a bit more logical. Let's get as many people in here as possible so we can have an awesome, engaging conversation. So click that share button right now. Let's get that out. And we really appreciate all the shares that you guys give. But I'm done talking. I'm gonna let Laura introduce our show guest today. I can't talk. Oh my gosh,
he's that excited. He's that excited. Can't even talk.
I'm very excited. So Laura, I'll let you take over, and I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Woohoo! All right. So our first guest today is Emily He. She's the Chief Marketing Officer over at DoubleDutch. She is a dynamic, passionate, and results-oriented marketing executive with 15 plus years of experience in GTM strategy, marketing communications, product marketing, demand gen, and customer marketing across a variety of sectors within enterprise software. We know and love it, including HCM, CRM, and SCM. And so it is now time to welcome Emily. Woo!
Hi.
All right. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. All right.
I'm so excited to be on the show.
We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
All right. So our next guest is Nick Clark. He is the Chief Technology Officer. So Nick specializes in team building, architecture, and product development. He's helped DoubleDutch grow from one event per month to thousands per year, and from one engineer to 40 in the short 5 years he's been with DoubleDutch. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. And last but certainly not least is Jan Sysmans. So Jan is the head of international marketing. He is passionate, action-oriented, results-driven, revenue-focused, and a hands-on marketing and product marketing leader. I ran out of fingers there. He runs international marketing for DoubleDutch, and his main focus is the EMEA and APAC region. So welcome, Jan.
Well, thank you very, very much. Glad to be here as well.
Yay, thanks for being with us. So like I mentioned earlier, we're going to tag team different questions here. But again, we encourage you to be sure to tweet out that you all are live, give props where you see fit. And we'll just go from there. So, question number for you all is, how did you all get into the events industry?
Okay, I can get started. So I'm a marketer, and I've done all kinds of marketing programs in the history of doing enterprise marketing. I've done digital marketing. I've done demand gen programs. I've done, webinars, but I've always felt there's something really magical about events, because at events, you have this energy and electricity coming from people connecting with each other, people connecting with content, and people connecting with the company. And at the end of the day, business is done through people meeting with each other and finding a common ground. The other reason I really care about events is events typically is the biggest marketing spend. So I really have to prove ROI. And that's how I came to the events industry.
Proving ROI, that is a hot topic these days, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess I'll jump in now. So I got into the events industry a little bit differently than Emily. The way I describe myself is I make tiny, small decisions very, very slowly and major life-altering decisions impulsively. So coming down to DoubleDutch was honestly kind of a impulsive decision. I was looking for a place that was mobile first, forward-thinking, looking to apply mobile technology to an industry that really hadn't adopted it before. And DoubleDutch checked all those boxes. Earplugs. I think the reason that I've grown to love the events industry is, one, the ecosystem's amazing, just between organizers and attendees and exhibitors. It's this kind of delicate ecosystem that works really well. But as a technologist, what I like the most is that we're seeing an industry that's largely rejected software for decades, all of a sudden start to embrace it, and we get to be at the forefront of kind of changing the way an industry behaves. So it's a pretty unique opportunity.
Wow, awesome. And Jan, what about you?
Laura, events is all about people, and I'm a passionate people person. So it is a great way of getting to know more people. And if you look at it from a corporate standpoint, from a business standpoint, I know it can be boring, but it's the best way of meeting your customers and figuring out what's going on. Events are high energy, and I think everybody knows when they walk into an event, they can feel it in their stomach, they can feel it in their gut, and they go, this is a place I want to be at. This is going to be fun. I'm going to learn something. And being able to make that experience better for people, that's what we are here for. Not only for attendees, but also for the organizers. And then we're all marketers. So what can we do and what can we learn out of that? But events is all about bringing people together and getting people excited and energized. And it is, I remember many events through my life, my career I've gone to at different times at a company. Everybody comes back from an event and is fully energized and is ready to go, and they're all pumped up. And that's what makes events so exciting.
That's great. That's why I love events too. So have any of you recently planned an event yourself? Love to see everybody's involvement in the events world. Has anybody planned an event lately?
It's funny you should ask. So
You tell.
right now we're doing a live engagement tour around the world. So we're doing this 6-city tour. We just finished New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Toronto. And next week I'm heading over to Amsterdam and London. So the roadshow, we're trying to do something new. We're obviously using our mobile app to engage with the attendees, but more importantly, the new opportunity we're seeing from the event app is the event app is capturing all this incredible engagement data, and the data tells us a lot about our interest from the the prospects and customers in our products, in our company, and we're using that as an opportunity to gather data and also use the data as engagement triggers to organize campaigns. So we're looking at events completely differently from before, and we're trying to digitize the event experience to improve ROI from events.
Wow, that's a very meta reason for doing events to help prove your ROI, and you're in the events industry. I love that. So we have another question here, but I'm going to tag out. I'm going to tag Will here, and the question is over in the box. So,
I think the question from Will is, hey, Will, you coming?
It was really
I will.
like froze for a second.
We're all waiting for you.
Back. Thank you. You guys waited for me.
Huh.
That's so awesome. Yeah, the question, because so I was actually sitting down with one of your new employees who used to work for one of my clients actually recently in the Phoenix office that you guys have started up, which is super awesome. And he was talking about how you guys are now getting into the space where you guys are developing apps and custom solutions for all of your clients and everything like that. So I wanted to kind of frame the conversation towards this idea of like event apps and the technology living on our phones at the events. So the first thing I think that comes to mind when people are thinking about designing an app and a piece of technology custom for their event is, how much does this cost? And, how do you know you're not spending too much money in the right area? So Nick, I know you're the CTO, you're the man behind the technology. Can you talk a little bit about like the technology that goes behind it and what involves in the cost for developing solutions?
Sure. I'm going to completely dodge the cost question and leave that one for Emily. But we'll talk about kind of the complexity behind it. I think when evaluating event app providers, there are a lot of different things you can look at. At its surface, people want a digital guide, so a copy of the agenda, speaker bios, things like that. A lot of times people look to go in, larger companies look to build their own app. Where I think we differentiate ourselves is, one, going and building your own app might seem like a great idea. I think people underestimate the amount of work involved to actually get a scalable, performant event app functional. A couple of things to think about. First, not everybody has an iPhone. People have iPhones, lots of different types of Androids. Some people still have Windows phones. So you have to kind of blanket all of those.
We call people crazy probably that still have Windows phones.
Yeah, I used to work at Microsoft, so I'm a bit of a sympathizer. Second, Wi-Fi at conferences tends to still be quite poor. And so really building an experience for how the app will work when you're in kind of poor reception is something that a lot of people don't even think about. We've been at this game for 5.5 years, where we've thrown events, 5,000 events throughout the world in every different type of environment. And we've optimized our app for those types of experiences. I think beyond that, what we're really focused on, aside from just giving you essentially a paper replica, is how we facilitate interactions between attendees and organizers and exhibitors at events. So we're trying to be a curator for your event experience to help you get the most out of it. So sessions that you might want to go to, people you should meet, and kind of learning as you go. We're playing with machine learning to try and help facilitate some of these connections. And that's just something you're not going to get from any of the other providers. So there's a lot of I think on average we're capturing 200 data points per attendee at an event, thousands of events going on. So we know how to scale software, and rest assured that if you throw a 50,000 person event, we're going to be able to stand up. So that's, I think, some of the.
Awesome. I think the thought you brought up about the idea, like, the scalability of it, it's super important, because there's I won't say everybody, but there's lots of people out there who say they can develop apps, and maybe they develop apps for like games, but a lot of times these apps, they have to utilize a lot of users simultaneously, not just someone coming in once a day to check a message or something like that. So I think that's really, really important, because you guys are one of kind of the big players in the events app space. Being able to know that you guys can scale these big apps, I think, is just incredibly important. So I think that's really important when someone's like choosing your vendor. Emily, so he obviously tossed the question towards you on the pricing side of things. What goes into the pricing side of it? Is it just based on the complexity? Is there something that people should avoid that costs a lot of money?
Thanks, Nick, for dodging that question.
You're welcome.
I think when it comes to event, there are obviously all kinds of different use cases and different types of events. And the pricing depends on how frequently you use the app and how many use cases you're supporting. So a typical use case is a marketing organization. Maybe you're doing a user conference, maybe you're doing a roadshow, maybe you're doing a sales kickoff, and you're trying to engage with your sales organization where you're engaging with your prospects and customers. And you don't do these events very frequently. So in that case, the pricing really depends on how many events you're running. And the second leg of the pricing variable is really what you're going to do with the data that you're capturing from the events. Because during events, you capture a lot of really incredibly insightful data about your prospects and customers. And this data is not just sort of action, like how many the content you're downloading, how many emails you're opening. The data is volunteered by your prospects and customers. So they say a lot about the interest from your prospects and customers about your products. And you can use data to organize additional marketing campaigns and things like that. So we now have a platform that customers can pay separately to leverage the data in their marketing campaigns. There is another type of use case, which is a lot of large organizations, they see our app as a vehicle for digital transformation. And when they do internal events, they want to get employees to use a mobile app so they get to know mobile technology and they get to know digital technology. And in some big companies, I'm not going to name names, they spend a six-figure amount on the event app because they want their employees to use the app for all their events. And another use case is trade shows. So we all go to trade shows, and the goal there is to use the event app as an opportunity to target your buyers and give them these offers that are tailored to their industry segment. So you can really achieve your goal of pipeline generation and you can get more ROI. So I'm not exactly dodging the question about pricing, but depending on the complexity and the frequency of the app, it ranges anywhere between 5-figure deal to 6-figure deals.
Awesome. And then I guess, Jan, on your end, are you seeing like any differences in, so obviously you're doing all the international stuff, so you're like bridging, continents together. Are you finding that there's a difference between the apps based on the regions? Like, so are you seeing like, it's more expensive in, like, for example, Europe, because you have to have like 3 different like language translations? Or are you finding that, it's more expensive in the stateside because they want more features and they want more complexity? What are you finding like the difference between the regions?
I think the difference between the regions is much more around what people are used to, what people are known, what the expectation is. And when you ask the question, how much does it cost? It's almost apples to oranges, because it really depends on what you get out of it. What is your expectation? What are you trying to do? If all you're trying to do is not kill trees, then we're not the right solution. But I'll go back to you and I say, if all you're doing is not kill trees and provide a digital download that somebody will look on their phone, they'll download it, they'll look at it once, and they'll never look at it again. And so as an event organizer, you're not getting any added value from using an event app. So that's number one. Regional differences, if I look at Asia Pacific, they're a little bit hesitant to want to use it initially because they're used to having an in-person meeting. They want to have the in-person contact. So they think that the event app is going to depersonalize the event experience. And again, I would say it's almost the opposite. The event app, a good event app that gives you a good idea of how engaging the event is and what other people are saying and doing, actually allows you to find the right people, find the like-minded people, and you can use the event app as a way of introducing yourself to then move it onto a face-to-face conversation, which is what people want to have. So I think the biggest misconception that people have is, oh, it's a mobile app. Most mobile apps are free or very inexpensive, and all I want really is I don't want to kill any trees and I want people to have something on their phone. That doesn't solve the business problem. The business problem people have, regardless of the type of event that they have, is I can only be at one place at the same time. But there's an extremely exciting conversation going on the other side of the building or in another room, I want to be able to still partake in that, and I still want to understand what's going on. In an engaging event app, and therefore a platform that supports that, allows you to do that, and allows you to be able to be in different places at the same time and really understand what is going on and who are the people that you want to meet with. Because that's what I said in the beginning. Events are about bringing people together. No matter where you are, whether it is in Asia, whether it's in Europe, or in the United States, you want to bring people together in a good, engaging event app that allows you to then figure that out and know who the right people are, pays for itself by being able to do that. And that is the big difference between what DoubleDutch does and what some of the other apps are doing in the industry.
Awesome. I liked when you guys started to kind of talk a little bit about the pitfalls that kind of people are making too. So, I mean, if you had to pick maybe top 5, or you can go off a huge list of things, but what are like the big big pitfalls that you guys are seeing when it comes to people designing apps? So like obviously the boring, hey, we just don't want to kill trees, but is there anything else? And Jan, I'll kick it back to you to see what you think, and then I'm going to let Laura jump in and ask the next question. But what do you think the biggest pitfalls that people are making when designing the apps?
I think there's 2 pitfalls you need to look at. It's the designing the app, and it's making a decision what app to use. The first one of designing the app is that they just didn't put any thought through it. And again, they think that it's all about just providing a calendar and providing an activity feed, but didn't really put any thought through what it is that you want to do and how do you want to leverage the information that you gain from that. The second pitfall on people buying an app is that they buy it it's never their first thing that they want to think about. It's kind of the last thing that they think about. Oh, we need to have an event app, so they just go out and they just get an event app without truly understanding how that solution can help them reach their business goals, their objectives of what the event. What is this event going to be? Is it a concert? What do I want to get out of that? Is it a business meeting? What do I want to get out of that? Is it a sales training, or what do I want to get out of that? Is it a customer event? What are my objectives that I have? How do I want to reach those? And then how do I want to report on that? And that is what people forget. And therefore, that's why some people feel that having an event app doesn't do them any good, because they never thought about what their objectives are before they started with it.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Jan is saying about not seeing the event app as a digital guide, but more as a social engagement tool. And I would share another kind of pitfall people usually get into when they use the event app. And that is it's almost like they have 2 parallel experiences. One is happening in the physical world. Another one is happening in the digital world. So they don't try to integrate the event app experience with the event experience itself. There should be one experience and they should come together. And the way to do that is at the beginning of the event, you need to think through how you encourage conversations in the app about what's happening on the main stage when people are presenting their main stage presentation or in the breakout sessions. And maybe you want to give people some guidance on how they can start using the app by having them take a poll, taking a survey, kind of introduce themselves in the app, and also participate in conversations when people are presenting. So you have one set of topics that everyone is discussing. The other one is when people start throwing out comments, they need some encouragement. It's like in a social environment, I'm initiating conversation, and if nobody's responding to me, it feels kind of intimidating. So make sure you have a strategy about responding to people's comments and questions, very similar to what's happening in social media. And you want to very early on facilitate that conversation and facilitate sort of an integrated experience between the digital world and physical world. And that's really the kind of experience we're striving for.
Very cool. Nick, do you have any input there? What are some of the struggles with designing an app?
I kind of, in my first answer, talked about, I think, some of the struggles, with performance, and Emily touched on integrating it into your event. We really don't think of the app as kind of just an app. We think of it as a way to kind of connect the digital and physical world and allow things that you're doing in the physical world to impact what's happening in the digital world. And so everything that we're building and putting into the app has a purpose, and it's some way to allow the organizer and the attendee to connect, the attendee and the attendee to connect, and to facilitate these types of interactions. And so I think just kind of keeping that in mind and letting that kind of affect how you implement the app is important. Aside from that, a lot of larger companies have a lot of security issues to worry about. There's a lot of sensitive data that's going into these apps, especially as people are sharing conversations internally within a company meeting. And so being careful that you're choosing a provider who puts security first. And not to brag on us, but we've gone through, I don't know, dozens and dozens of audits, and we do it proactively. Because security is something that you just don't mess around with. You hear every week some, password set getting leaked to hackers, and we don't want to be, famous for that. And so when you're dealing with finance and pharmaceutical, it's important to kind of put that stuff at top of mind.
Cool. And you mentioned one thing that's really interesting. You said that it's kind of one of your big focuses is performance. And so Elizabeth Glau, we have a question here from the audience. How many times do you need to get a request? I think you meant how many times do you need to get a request from different clients in order to implement it? So regarding performance or a feature, how does that work? Yes. Sorry, Elizabeth. Yeah, I got you. But yeah, so how many times and how does that product feedback process work for you all? Since you have such a wide variety of clients.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll jump in first and let Emily jump in next. There's not a specific kind of number of requests that we have to hear it. A lot of it's kind of back of the napkin math, where if we're hearing something enough times from different customers, we certainly look to prioritize it. For us, it's really about how we can better serve the organizer and attendee and capture data from them. And so for 3 or 4 years, the 2 metrics internally that we were solely focused on was how do we increase the adoption rate of the app, so getting as many attendees in as possible. And then once we've done that, how do we increase how engaged the attendees were? Because everything that they're doing in the app is some signal into what their interests are, what's working at the event, what's not working. And that data is invaluable to the organizer of the event. And so when we hear requests from different organizers or customers, we put it through that kind of litmus test first. Is this going to help increase adoption? Is this going to help increase engagement? And if there's overlap there, then it kind of shoots up to the top of the list. There are other things that are pain points for customers, or bugs certainly get prioritized pretty highly. We want to have a seamless experience. And so it depends on the type of feature. We obviously want to delight our customers. But we're also very conscientious that with mobile applications, just piling more features in isn't necessarily the right way to build a great app. We want to build something that attendees love and use, so that the data streams back to the people throwing the event. And just throwing in features doesn't really get us there. But we still listen to every request that comes in.
Very cool.
Yeah, I totally agree with Nick. I think when it comes to product development, we're always trying to strike the balance between innovation and making the customers happy. And a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, event app didn't even exist. And our job was really to reimagine the event experience by bringing the digital technology into the event experience. So we're sort of at the forefront of leading this set of innovation and leading this conversation. And a lot of the functionality, we really had to just reimagine and figure out what's best for attendees and what's going to make them engage with the events more. And we try to look out to other areas in technology, whether it's in social, in the mobile arena, to bring in the latest and greatest social technology and incorporate that in the event experience. In the meantime, obviously, we want to make the customers happy, and our customers have really cool and interesting ideas. So we try to listen to the customers very closely, not in terms of what functionality to implement, but more what are they trying to achieve. And we try to leverage the best and latest, the best and greatest technology to help them accomplish those goals.
Jan, any thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
I think Nick and Emily said everything.
Okay. There's a good follow-up question here from Will. So Google recently announced instant apps. I don't know if I'm sure you guys have heard about this, for Android, where people won't have to download the app in order to use it. So I guess I'll pose this one to Jan. Do you think that will help with event app adoption?
I think what people are confusing is the difference between an app and an app and an app. To do an app where you don't have to download anything, it almost becomes browser-based element where you always need to have connectivity and other elements too, and I don't think you can get any of the analytics out of it necessarily that you would want to, or drive truly the engagement. I'll let the real technical stuff go to Nick, but I don't think an event app, to make it, for it to become truly engaging and beneficial and useful to the event attendees as well as to the event organizers, because you can't forget that the event organizer needs to get something out of it as well. They need to learn something out of it too. Just an appless app doesn't, I think, is not going to be able to do the trick. But Nick, I'm stepping on your world here. So
I'll throw in a little bit more color. So for those of you listening that don't know, the instant apps that Android just announced, I think it's going to be end of the year that they release it. It's not web technology. It's actually the same kind of Java-based applications that run on Android today. The difference being they're kind of bypassing the App Store for segments of an app. So not a full app running in the browser, but you can offer part of your application that will just load without having to go to the App Store and download. And then within that, it has a little kind of install button to install the full app. So like I mentioned earlier, two of the things that we've been really focused on for a long time are adoption and engagement. And when you're talking about adoption, there's a funnel, right? You invite a whole bunch of people to an event, some choose to come. Then with the app, some people get the email, choose to download it. Some people then log in. Some people then get actively engaged. And every step along the way there's some drop off. So everything we can do to remove barriers to entry is important for us. So with instant apps, one of the barriers to entry that we can remove is the necessity to download an app. And so obviously we want them to have the full experience so that they can engage with all the features of the app and the organizer can collect, all of this interesting data on the attendee. But I view that as kind of our responsibility to have this kind of the instant app show enough value that the attendee wants to install the full app. And to me, that's a win-win scenario. We want people to get into the app quickly without any problems, and we want them to enjoy the full experience. So we will certainly be exploring this pretty heavily. I imagine iOS will kind of follow down that road in a year or two. But I think it's good for everybody involved.
Great. And then once, somebody does download the app, they get in and they're poking around at the features. I guess we'll start with Emily this time. What are some of the biggest trends or cool new features that people have to have on their event app that maybe you're seeing as a trend in your experience?
One of the things, our social features is always the most popular. People get really excited when they're part of the activity stream and they can ask questions, they can make comments, and that's where most of the interactions happen. Recently, we've seen more people joining channels. So last year, we introduced a new functionality called channels. It's very similar to the channels you see on, and you can during an event form topic channels. So maybe you're talking about, I don't know, organic food, and you can form that channel, and people who are interested can join the channel and be part of that conversation. Sometimes people also form channel around the main stage presentation or breakout session. So you can have a focus area where you can have one conversation all at once. So it's really a great way to facilitate that community of interest, and you can share your passion together. The other interesting feature we've seen more adoption recently is around meetings, because at the end of the day, it's about, when you go to the event, it's about people meeting face to face. And we now have the ability for you to schedule meetings with attendees directly based on the networking opportunities or just common interests, whether it's industry or someone you talk to. So those are the two things we've seen lately.
Jan, I'm going to pose this question to you. Do you see any, maybe features that are really hot in EMEA or APAC? And maybe when you come and chat with with the team here that's in America, and they're like, whoa, that's not a trend here at all. Do you ever see a disparity in features that people like there versus here or in other countries?
Let me, I'll give one example. WeChat integration. WeChat is the platform of choice for any social media and anything else in China, but when I talk about Greater China, I'll talk about the Chinese influence around Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific. People use WeChat for everything, and we don't integrate with WeChat. And that is one of the things that we see as a request coming out of APAC on a regular basis. Why don't you have WeChat integration? The reason why we don't integrate with WeChat is that our core customers here in the United States and in Europe don't use WeChat. So there's always going to be regional differences. In Europe, it's an integration with Zing, which is a German equivalent of LinkedIn, for example. Those are some of the things that you will see. And then there's simple stuff. In our app, we identify users by first name and then last names, and initial of the last name. So you would be Laura L. Well, in Asia, and even in Europe, people do not immediately address people by first name. They would much rather address people by their last name, and they will search for people by their last name. And so if you power events that are international organizations, it's okay because it's an international audience. If you go more into a local event, then you run into those issues of a cultural difference or technology integration difference. But I think you can't do everything for everybody. So you need to never forget what your core audience is. And our core audience is a large international or corporate customer. And that is our core audience. And so we need to build products for our core audience, not for everybody.
Sean had a good follow-up, and this might be more of a question for Nick. And are you able to segment those regions? So having WeChat integration for Europe, but maybe just it's really not a thing in America. So is it possible to just show parts of the app that are applicable to that audience?
Sure. So our app is extremely customizable. Certain features can be turned on and off based on preference. It's less of a question of, is it possible to do this? It's more a matter of focus. What we're trying to do is build the best event platform in the world, best live engagement marketing platform. And you do that by having a singular focus on building what is best for the largest set of people in your target audience. And that means not chasing every kind of integration that gets us into different markets. We're just trying to build the best platform possible. So I hope that kind of answers. That's kind of the lens we put it through. We don't tend to build features specifically for regions because we think that events throughout the world are all trying to solve fairly similar problems. Over time, we will. But right now, we think that there's so much innovation left to happen just, on the surface of events that we want to focus on getting that right first and then expanding or opening it up for other people to expand our platform into WeChat integrations or things like that.
That totally makes sense. I mean, yeah, why try to spread yourself too thin too, right? Trying to do too many.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Exactly. Awesome. Cool. I kind of want to pivot since we're going to the last little piece of the show. We had a couple of more generic questions we had for you guys as icons of the events industry. Everyone's always constantly want to know what's the productivity tip that helps you get things done. Everyone's trying to figure out that way. And you guys are all super busy. I mean, you guys are all in executive positions within the company. Jan, you must be traveling literally across the world all the time, probably way more than even I do.
No, not really. I wish I was more, but there is a diminishing returns of productivity as you sit in airplanes. So
that's true. That's very true. I'm starting to realize that now too, as well. So my question to you guys, and we'll start with Emily, is: do you have a favorite piece of technology that you use to get your job done? Whether it's even maybe a non-technology. What would you say is your favorite thing to get things done?
I would say probably two things, and they're not technology related. I feel like technology only distract me from the important things rather than help me be more productive. So the first thing is I'm a big believer in identifying the big rocks in your life. So it's really important to always reflect and think about what are the most important thing in your life, whether it's your family, your children, or your team, and kind of allocate your time accordingly. And it's something that you have to keep reminding yourself of. Otherwise, you just get distracted and focus on other things. The other thing that I've realized, and this is something that my children taught me, and that is the importance of being present. So whenever I'm in meetings with my team, or I'm playing with my kids, you need to be really present and get the most out of that moment, because that's all you have. And I think my kids have taught me to be present, because kids are very straightforward. And if you're not there mentally, they notice right away, they just sort of walk away. And I feel like by being present, I'm getting more out of each conversation, I'm getting more done, versus always multitasking and getting distracted and spending time on a lot of different things, but not getting enough return out of anything I'm working on.
Awesome. I love the rocks thing. We do that at Endless, and I post a video on the right-hand side, and it'll be in the resources list, but explaining that whole Stephen Covey story behind put the rocks in first, then, then the pebbles, then the sand, then water. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, what we're talking about, that video, bookmark it, and it'll change your life. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I even use that as a management technique. So each quarter, we kind of start the quarter by having a big rocks presentation, and each one of us will have to identify the big rocks we focus on this quarter. And we keep going back to that presentation to remind ourselves what's the most important thing instead of reacting to the crisis of the day.
Awesome. I love it. Do you guys happen to use, this going to be like a super technical business question, I apologize for everyone else out there. Do you guys use like the EOS traction methodology to manage your guys' company? No?
I don't think so.
No idea. Okay,
No.
So super businessy, but there's
Please share a resource.
Yeah, I'll link in the resources. Awesome book. It's like how to like manage your company, and part of it is setting rocks at the beginning of every quarter. So that just kind of came to my mind. So awesome, cool. Nick, what about you? Any pieces of technology that help you get your job done? Guys gotta have some tech.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm coding a lot of the day, so I need some development tools. But those aside, to echo what Emily said, for me, it's really about limiting what I'm focused on to not have too many things. I find whenever I'm least productive, it's because I'm trying to do 50 different things and I'm doing all of them fairly mediocrely. So focus is the big one. One more non-tech thing, I think exercise is a way to keep me able to focus a bit better and actually enjoy what I'm doing. If I'm not exercising, I struggle to work.
Awesome.
But I think the single biggest piece of technology I use to get my job done is Spotify. For developers, it's so important to be able to have uninterrupted focus time. And so I put on my noise canceling headphones, crank up whatever type of music I'm in the mood for, and sit down and get work done. And that just kind of tunes out all other sounds and distractions. And that's probably the big one for me.
Awesome. Laura had a quick question clarifying, like, is there any specific exercises that you like to do?
It depends. I play a lot of soccer and tennis. That's kind of gets the competitive spirit going. And then, go running or lift weights or something, just to do something in a shorter time period.
Awesome. And then Emily, you're saying you do yoga too?
Oh, definitely. I'm a big fan. It's really hard to find time when I have a family to do yoga, but that's the one sport I still do. I used to do all kinds of things, but now that's the only thing I do.
Awesome. And our international man of business, are you working out, yogaing it up, acro yoga?
So my wife and I, we have a private Pilates session at home twice a week.
Cool.
And that's actually, it's been very good. Yes, that is cool. I know. The other thing that I used to do is, and I'm not doing it enough right now, but I used to want to do a 5K or a 10K in every city that I would visit.
Cool.
And so running, especially early in the morning for me when I go travel, because it charges me up for the rest of the day. I find that to be very invigorating. And then I would get on my bike on a regular basis in where I live in Silicon Valley, and within 20 minutes I'm in the hills, and and it's a great way of just letting the wind blow out all of the bad things in your mind, clear up, and I actually get very creative, and I come up with some very creative ideas as I bike or run.
Cool, very cool. And then, do you have any other pieces of technology that you're using to get things done at all?
I've got to be very sad, but
just your phone. Awesome.
It's my connection to everything. It's the source of all my ADD and frustration of people around me, as Emily can testify. But yes, thank you.
No problem.
I am glued to this phone, and my son is too, and I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. So
awesome, very cool. And I'm guessing you're an iPhone man.
Yeah, so the only way to go.
Awesome, very cool. Awesome. And Brittany in the audience recommended worklife.com. It's I've seen it too. It's a really great goal management calendar app that I think you can do meetings in it as well. So super duper awesome. I believe they just added a huge new feature, got acquired by somebody. Something big just happened with Work Life too, I remember reading. So very cool tool. Awesome. Well, we'll get on to the last two questions that we have for you guys, or I guess probably the last question since we're getting really close to the end. Well, if you guys had like one tip you could share with the audience to make their planning process easier, or make it so they have the best events possible, what would you guys recommend as your one tip for those planners in 2016?
I'll let others go first.
Could you repeat that question once more?
Yeah, it's okay. What's like your one tip for making event planning easier for planners, or one tip that maybe on the event app space? It can be about anything. What would be your like one tip for event planners for 2016?
I guess I'll jump in. I think the one thing that isn't currently being done that in my mind is a necessity for proper event planning and really making your event successful is integrating your event into the rest of your marketing kind of procedures. And so I mean that with technology and data and planning, but thinking of events as another way to drive business outcomes and treating it like every other form of marketing, where it's not okay to not understand and be able to quantify exactly what's happening. It's our CEO has this quote that he stole from somebody else, that it's essentially half of my money being spent on advertising is wasted. The problem is knowing which half. And with events, I think that's fairly accurate right now, where a lot of money is being thrown into events and there's not a good way to understand exactly what's working and what's not working. So my big tip is thinking about treating event marketing just like any other form of marketing and insisting on it being instrumented and tracked and learning from it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I actually, this is a really good question. And I think there are two changes I see in the events industry. So events they're really the last bastion of digitalization. And I think out of all the marketing channels, events represents the channel that's primed for transformation. And we're going to see a lot of changes in this industry. So my advice for the event organizers, there are two things. One is embrace technology, and technology is going to play a much more important role in the event industry. So get away from just organizing logistics and embrace technology and really focus on data, the data you're gathering from the events, and use the data to insert yourself into the conversation about strategy, about your marketing strategy, about your business strategy. The second thing that I think is equally important is for event professionals to look at their roles a little bit differently from the past. In the past, event organizers focused on organizing the logistics and the event experience. And now the event organizers need to elevate their role and start seeing events as a source of important engagement data and customer insight. If they can start seeing their role that way and use the data to elevate themselves and to push, to propel their career to the next level and insert themselves into the strategy conversation, I think it presents an unprecedented career opportunity that they can embrace. So that's what I would say about 2016 and beyond.
Difficulty. Very cool. Well, Awesome. Well, looks like we're pretty much almost at time here. Does anybody have any last remarks before we close it out? Besides, use DoubleDutch.
Yes, so Laura, are you and Will coming to the live engagement tour next week in London or Amsterdam?
I will not be there, unfortunately. Yes, please fly me out. Will and I will be very willing to join. I did notice that you guys came to DC, but I actually was out of town, and it was a one-day only thing, so I wasn't able to go. But yes, and I will potentially be also in Amsterdam for future events. Are either of you going to be there in Amsterdam?
We decided not to go.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Cool. Well, no. Yes. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And for those of you who are logged on right now, Event Icons is weekly, and we are flip-flopping who hosts each week. So sometimes it may be Will and myself. Sometimes it will be Sean Holiday of Crowd Mics, who's also in the house here. So be sure to tune in next week, same time. It's 5 p.m. Eastern here right on Blab. So thank you again for an amazing session today, Team DoubleDutch, Emily, Nick, and Jan. Thank you very much. And yes, thank you for everybody for tuning in. And we're going to hang out for a little bit for some post-show banter. So feel free to stick around if you have any lingering questions. Yes, and as Will mentioned, be sure to catch the recording if you have it to maybe forward on to a colleague. That will be available at helloendless.com/blog. And yeah, so that's it, folks. Have an awesome rest of your week, and we'll see you next week on Event Icons.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.